Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Tell Me More with me, Tom Idle, here on 2 Degrees. Thank you for joining in. This time we're with the Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS, and we're here in the heart of the City of London. And I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Sullivan, who is the bank's CEO of the Corporate Banking Division. Chris, thank you for being here and spending some time with us today.
It's a pleasure, Tom. Yeah.
So Chris, we want to talk about sustainability at RBS and what that means. The economic crash of 2008 painted a very bleak picture of the banking sector, and RBS, rightly or wrongly, was fairly symbolic of all that was bad about banks, particularly here in the UK. As we all know, you had to be bailed out by the government because you collapsed because there was too much risk taking going on, there was poor due diligence, poor management decisions, all the things we know now out of Lord Turner's review. We're obviously a few years on from that. RBS has ambitions to build a more positive bank. Your former group CEO, Stephen Hester, said that you want to build a bank that is a positive part of society. How do you do that? How do you make this turnaround from being where you were to where you want to get to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. And it's obviously the first thing that you think about when you're trying to come back from a very difficult experience. And your comments around everything that was bad about banking, sort of coming out in an RBS flavour. Actually, the opposite's also true. So everything that's good about banking is here too. And so the first thing for me was to focus on those things. So we haven't got to change the overall culture. We've got to get the best bits of the culture absolutely affirmed in the organisation. Everybody understands it. And then we have to use that to the benefit of our customer base. So, you go back to the very basics. Why were banks created? And they were created to underpin elements of society. First of all, trade. And to facilitate trade more effectively. Go back to the 1600s here in the UK, which is the genesis of this bank, and the core banks at that time, they were set up to deal with the trade in London and various other places. And if you look at how banking's evolved for private individuals, it really is about how you help people to have a better life. So at key points of their life, they're going to buy a house, they're going to buy a car, their kids are going to want to be provided for over a period of time. Your pension when you come to retirement and things along those lines. That's what banks are designed to do. Sure. As you rightly say, I look after the corporate bank. I think that's fundamentally important. So my job is really to look at all the businesses that we bank, and we bank more than anybody else in the UK, and look at each one of them and say, how do I help you to run a better business? I think we can help people in three ways. We can help them to sustain themselves more often, and I mean to survive to start with, and then you go on from there to be more efficient, and actually to help them to grow if they want to. Always put that in, because some businesses just want to be a lifestyle business. They want to grow in that respect, and it's important as a banker you get to know that. So put some disciplines in place. Get back to professionalism in banking. One of the key things. So I inherited 40% qualified bankers. I've now got 93% qualified bankers, and my promise is that everybody will see a qualified banker.
Sure.
And that bank will use their skill and understand you as a customer and be able to put those two things together to help you to run your business more effectively.
Yeah.
I think that's an important start point.
So we'll come back and we'll talk more about what you're doing for your customers right now. What's it been like working here? I mean, you've been with the business for more than 30 years. What's it been like in the last few years working here?
Well, at one level, it's horrible, because nobody wants to see that external environment where everything that comes out is negative, around behaviours, and you can't defend some of those behaviours. Although, I would say to you that actually in many cases there's just been a relatively few number of people who've done the wrong things. And it's the organisation's job to be very clear that what's right and what's wrong, and so that bit's been difficult, and having to get people to recognise that all the good things that we do internally first of all, before we try and get that message out to the outside world, and that message will come through by how we behave and how we work. The other part of it though has been quite exciting, because if you like a challenge, then this has been a challenge. Okay, and I care hugely about the reputation of this organisation, and I have I've always spent my career with customers, and I've built great relationships with customers. And if you do that well, it's good fun. It's good fun. You can see the good that you're doing, and so actually getting your staff to enjoy that again, feel proud of what they do, I think has been an exciting challenge, and I've enjoyed that part of it.
So underpinning your kind of sustainability strategy are 5 core planks, if you like. It's about fair banking, supporting businesses, citizenship and environment, employee engagement, and safety and security. What did your sustainability strategy look like, say, 2005, and how has it changed?
In those days, it was, who's doing what in these key areas, who should we sponsor, and then how can we measure ourselves in a fairly tangible way around what we're trying to do ourselves. I think we've evolved from that, and very clearly I've picked up in the corporate bank as part of our strategy, we should look for key waves that are running around the world, and see, first of all, how we can be a role model organisation to get some credibility. If you're going to try and promulgate things through the world, then actually you need some credibility from which to build. I think the other thing is that banks are great at actually facilitating stuff. Quite clearly you can facilitate good or bad stuff, and too much of the bad has happened. And I think the route to your reputation is to get back to the grassroots of doing good things. So I've picked, not randomly, but areas where I think there are key elements of the economy and the society that we live in, where we can be a role model, and then we can actually use that to be able to help our customers to actually achieve objectives in those areas. And the key ones I've picked have been the area of diversity, and diversity actually creating better results for the organisations and the society in which we live in. The areas of sustainable energy, which is a broad area altogether, the areas of community funding and investment, and then charities. So I think that, the great thing a bank has got, and this bank more than any other, is a huge network of people who know about things and who can make things happen. And actually we can't make everything happen ourselves, but we know people who can. And I think what we've done is got real knowledge in each of those four areas. And I think, I would like to think, I think I've got some evidence to prove, that we know more about those areas than anybody else.
Yeah. And let's talk about your lending. It's obviously one of the big complaints aimed at banks right now, that you're just not lending enough. Last year, you lent £58 billion to UK business. Is that enough? Is enough getting through, particularly to the small business community?
It's a great question. Actually, there can never be enough, I guess, in reality, so there can always be more. And there's a big argument, is it a supply thing or is it a demand thing? I have to say, there is no constraint on RBS to lend money to small businesses, or any businesses actually, with the normal constraints of can they pay you back? Does it work or not? And so the biggest issue for me at the moment is actually finding customers who will apply for a loan. So we're not going for the safe big ones. We actually do more in every area than anybody else.
Sure, but you're looking for more applications.
But absolutely, we're looking for more. And I think the key thing is not just about lending, it's about having people who understand small businesses on my side, who can help those people through different forms of lending, not just an overdraft, let's say.
And what are you doing to help the low carbon economy, the resource efficiency economy, if you like?
The first thing is making sure that my people understand it. So I have specialist units, that, and their job is to know more about this environment than anything else, and then spread that across my more general banking network, so that they'll know enough to be able to connect with the customer, and then they'll be able to put the right connection in the right way. Through one of my businesses, Mentor, we link that into the bank, and they will come out and do an energy efficiency audit. We have a partnership set with something called an inspirational journey. That partnership is all around filling the pipeline with female executive talent. So we have done some things internally in RBS to get credibility. I've then not sponsored them, as we talked about earlier on. I've actually partnered with them. So I've paid for them to evolve a whole set of programs, and I've introduced to them to 40 of our very largest businesses in the UK, and we all work together to deal with that area. I then take that knowledge and I use it in the small business arena. So we believe that if there are barriers for women to run, to get into higher positions in big organisations, there probably were barriers for women in their own businesses as well. Yeah. So we've evolved that over a 5-year period, and we started out with 12 people who were focused on that sector. I now have 200 people working in the women in business, small business sector. And the interesting thing for me is that's about 16-17% of the customers that I have in small business in the UK. but 28% of the businesses that joined RBS last year are run by women.
Right.
So de facto, I think women have, by word of mouth, begun to realise that RBS is a business that really understands what they're trying to achieve and helps.
Sure. I read an interview that you did with The Guardian last month in which you said that within 15 years the campaign on gender equality will be a non-issue in the UK. Why are you so confident about that?
The gender diversity piece, which is probably the easiest to deal with in some respects. And there's many people working on interventions in that area, and I just believe that as that group of people come through, it will just, embrace the whole issue and actually becomes much more of a meritocracy. And a lot of the barriers that exist today will have either been knocked down or will just cease to be important.
Sure. And Chris, we've talked about some of the issues that RBS has had in the past, and hopefully we're coming out the other side now. What poses the biggest challenge for you today in becoming a more responsible business? Is it difficult to be a responsible business?
No, I don't think it's difficult to be a responsible business at all. I think the issues around consistency for us. So, 120,000 people across the globe. I think getting those people to understand very clearly, what our culture characteristics need to be, and then getting those characteristics displayed to customers. So actually the issue is time. It's about finding the right waves and investing effectively in those areas, and then bringing all of those things together. So I don't think there's anything that stops us doing this. We're working as fast as we possibly can at the moment, and actually the more customers that we work with, the more people who are expert in these areas, the better and more efficient our activities become.
Yeah, and we have this impending cliff, don't we, the global 2050 challenge, where resources are scarce, the population's booming, we'll be living in a very, very different world. Do you, or does the bank, or does the sector feel a weight of responsibility to make sure that we invest in the right things now, so that when we get to that cliff, that we don't all just fall off?
Absolutely. Banks were created to support society. So anything that we can do, individually or collectively, to be able to make that future a sustainable one and an attractive one is something we should do. We certainly are not going to come up with all the good ideas, but we probably have got access to a lot more people with a lot more knowledge than anybody else. And on that basis, making sure we know where that knowledge is and making sure we connect it in the right ways means our chances of making the right decisions are better.
Yeah. Chris, thank you for spending some time with us and for giving us an insight into RBS and what you're doing to turn things around, and it's good to hear some positive stories.
No, thank you very much, Tom. Thanks.
For those of you tuning in, thank you for being there. If you'd like to continue the conversation online, please do so by using the boxes underneath the video. And until next time, see you soon.